This content is brought to you by Huawei. Thanks to their solutions that enable personalized medicine by bringing genomics into your smartphones, GenomSys is democratizing genomic analysis. This Swiss company with a diverse team is spearheaded by Alessio Ascari, who has a history in digital health and disruptive technologies. Enjoy this video interview directly from MWC in Barcelona. Welcome to this interview, Alessio. I'm very excited to speak to you today and get to know you better, get to know GenomSys better, and have a deep conversation about what you're about to accomplish with your company. So let's get started first, because as you know, most of investors and people who want to work with you, they want to know who they're working with. So give us a little bit of background of who you are.
Okay, I am Alessio Ascari. I'm the CEO of GenomSys. I'm actually not the founder of the company. I joined only 9 months ago.
Yes.
To accelerate the growth of the company and make the turn from technology and standard development into commercial products.
Mm-hmm. What is your background? How come they wanted you to be the CEO like this?
Well, I come from 20 years of management consulting and about 10 years of digital health experience. I had my own startup that I founded, then I exited, and so I get a bit of a sense of what are the issues and hiccups of turning an idea into a business, as well as having B2B and B2C discussions.
So tell me, one or two of these experiences, maybe you can share with me what are some of these key learnings that you want to implement right now?
Key learnings is first of all, you need to understand that anything in healthcare will take probably 2 or 3 times more to turn into reality than your initial ideas and anything else in pure technology.
Okay.
And second point, that anything you do that has any healthcare related component requires a standard of quality and attention that is higher than you would do in a kind of non-mission critical or non-health related software environment.
Mm-hmm. And this is primarily, to protect the people, I guess, or
correct. Yeah, to protect the people, to make sure that there are no issues generated to the people.
In an ideal world.
In an ideal world, correct. Of course, if the things are used properly.
Yes. Very good. So tell me, taking over such a project or company at this stage, I would still say it's a startup. How come, what motivated you to do something like this?
Well, I've always been motivated by kind of trying to make change and lead innovation. Even when I was a management consultant in the past 10 years of my life as a management consultant, I was always embarking in new initiative to demonstrate the impact of new technologies on industry sectors. Mm-hmm. For example, I was the person creating and leading the mobile health initiative at the time, when digital health was still not called digital. And so this, I think, GenomSys is a bit the last frontier. So genomic is an infant healthcare topic or sector. Yeah. And it's really something that could lead to massive development, but is the latest innovation. So being able to be part of that and turning it into a reality. So turning the holy grail of personalized medicine into something real, it was really attracted me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Good. So, we've mentioned GenomSys many times already, and curious to hear what you guys do.
Okay, good point. So basically, the company developed a new standard and new technology for genomic data processing. So we take over from when the DNA has been sequenced and turned into a digital format. Mm-hmm. So we don't do any laboratory and thing or environment. And the objective is basically to take genomics a step further and make sure that people can use genomics in their everyday life or for every important decision. And this we do through the technology and the standard that we have helped develop. So that sounds still a bit vague.
Yes.
So concretely, we have developed an app that enables any individual to store their DNA in their app, highest privacy. No one else can have it unless they consent, and use it to have analysis, to run analysis, to ask for analysis. Which analysis? Could be analysis that regard their everyday life or how many coffee per day they should take because they are a fast processor or a slow processor. So if they take too many coffees, caffeine will be in their body too long. Could be something a bit more health, but still lifestyle related. So how they process or metabolize vitamin D. Could be stepping up how their body reacts to certain medications. Could be if they are carrying any genetic mutations that could potentially be transferred to their children and became a disease. So that is what can be done.
Just tell me so I fully understand. But what is the status quo right now? So like, I have some company that takes my DNA and right now it's floating around.
The status quo are twofold. So you have one option that is you as a consumer. In certain countries, you cannot do anything. So if you live in Switzerland or if you live in France,
yes,
a consumer cannot decide to take a genomic test on their own. A physician with genetic training need to prescribe it for whatever reason.
Okay.
In other countries, like the country where we are right now, you are allowed to decide yourself that you want to understand what your DNA implicates for you in certain areas. So in Spain, you can decide that you want to understand all these lifestyle components. This is the situation today. So when you can do as a consumer, when you can ask things, in a lot of situations you have companies typically in the US, UK or China, Hong Kong, that would run a test, get your DNA, run a test, send you the results, store the data of your DNA somewhere, aggregate the data, and typically make money from that, more than what they do from the test, by selling this to pharma companies or other purposes. This is one topic, one area. And that, of course, is raising a privacy issue, because you don't know what your DNA will be used for.
Right.
Number one. The other opposite is you are prescribed a test, a diagnostic test, a genomic test. You go to a lab, they can get your sample, could be blood or saliva, depends. They run tests, typically you have a biologist or whatever looking what's there, and they give the result to the physician. So this is kind of the situation. So we want to move away from that, move away from you don't know what has been done with your data. So privacy paramount, the DNA is yours and you keep it. In your hands, and you decide when and for what to use it. And on the other hand, a lot of analysis bring them directly to you, at least as a choice.
Right.
Then we always recommend when you ask for example, for a more, let's say, more health related test, like could I potentially carry a mutation into my children, to consult a physician, but would be your choice. So we want really to, a lot of people, it's a bit abused sometimes. We want to democratize genomics in the sense that we want to make it available to the individuals whenever they want.
Right. And tell me, I mean, like there's, if I remember correctly, the name from an Israeli company called 23andMe.
It's a US company.
A US company that was founded, I think, there. But like this, what is the difference to them?
What they do, the first thing I described.
Oh, they do the sampling.
They would ask you, would you want to do some test about, I don't know, nutrigenomics, some health test or whatever, no diagnostic implication. You send them their sample. They send you the result on a selected number of things, typically not a huge number, but enough to stimulate your curiosity, and they keep the data. Actually, the revenues are more related to selling the data afterwards, to pharma or research, than what they gain from you as a consumer asking for a result.
Interesting. So somewhat of a misalignment, or at least like not maybe transparently communicated. Like,
well, it's always the game. I mean, maybe you don't always know what your data is being used for. But now we are getting very concerned about, I don't know, the use of our financial data, credit card number or whatever. And strangely enough, there hasn't been yet, because now is mounting, the same concern for your DNA data that, by the way, is the only thing that you cannot change. Because you can change a credit card if it's stolen, cloned, or abused, but you cannot change your DNA.
Yes,
it's you.
So tell me, you just told me about the app that you have launched. What have you been, like your last few milestones? What have you planned for the next couple of years?
Well, the last two milestones have been basically the company, even before I joined, worked first to develop the standard and the base technology that would make these kind of things possible.
Yeah.
Like in terms of storage space, because are huge files, in terms of ease of access to certain specific areas of your DNA.
Right.
And then we moved forward. So we just CE-marked as medical device in vitro diagnostics the software enabling the use of this standard. We just released software for professional use. So what I told you, people in the lab, biologists in the lab can use the same standard, the same approach using our tools. Mm-hmm. And now we are releasing the app that is kind of the ultimate component to make the dream of everyone having their DNA in their pocket and using it a reality.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine already what your answer is going to be. But let's say, if you look at, let's say, a decade from now, like as entrepreneurs or CEOs, you have to like think in decades and not just like next 1 or 2 years. What would be kind of like the ideal status of the company, if you can predict from now?
Well, I start from the prediction that is not my prediction. NIH just released the prediction that by 2031, so 10 years from now, exactly, perfect, everyone will have their whole genome sequence and will be able to use in their everyday decision about drug prescription and diagnosis. So let's take it for granted. It's NIH. Okay. 10 years from now, we hope earlier, but 10 years from now that will happen. Our company should have played a major role in accelerating that and making that a reality for many more people. Mm-hmm. Will we be an independent company? Will be part of a major high-tech company? I don't know, honestly. We believe that we want to have a major role in accelerating and making sure that the prediction of NIH is a reality.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting, I mean, like I would love to hear what you have to say about like the market size. I mean, like we know exactly like 7 to 8 billion people, in the world. So, at some point you probably have everybody in your system. But like, how do you calculate the market? Like what is kind of the market size?
It's very difficult to be completely transparent to calculate the exact market today, because as the industry is still developing, science is developing.
Sure.
So the different applications are also growing. So I can tell you different metrics, and they will all be wrong by definition.
In the long term, but it's good.
But just to give you an example that is also related to the example of the application that we are showing here at Mobile World Congress, there are 1 billion people that culturally tend to have high consanguinity. So marriage or between people that are relatives, like uncle with niece or these kind of things. So if this 1 billion people, more or less half of them are in the age of actually generate children. For these people, knowing if they could transmit a genetic mutation could be of extremely high importance.
Yeah.
If you have a children with someone that carries your same mutation, there is a 25% probability each time that mutation will become a disease in the children. Wow. Yeah, because it's a recessive gene typically. Right. I mean, there are other things that are actually not recessive, but these are recessive genes typically. So if you carry and you are not sick, you're fine. If your other partner has the same, 25% chance that both genes that are carried the disease are actually transmitted. If both are carrying the disease, the children is sick. And could be something that says, okay, I need to take some supplement for the first few years of my life. Could be something that means I need to take some supplement for the whole of my life. Could be something that unfortunately says, well, the life expectancy will be a few years.
Right.
So it's it's an information that's very important. So this, just to give you an idea of one application, what could be the applicability. Then if you go on monetary terms, I mean, you get estimates that says will be 100 billion in 4 years. The market is growing fivefold every 4 years, more or less, but also depends on how many applications are developed. Science is developed very fast.
Right.
Awareness is not always there.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't know exactly the power of this information.
I mean, like, the question, I mean, we don't have, it's probably a conversation for another time, but the question if someone an uncle who wants to marry his niece and is looking at a test will change his mind because of the genome itself. But again, that could be a discussion culturally.
That carries cultural, social discussion that go beyond here, and probably we are not the most qualified person.
No, for sure. That's what I'm saying. It's a question.
I agree. I think the important thing of knowing it is that then you can do whatever you want.
By at least knowing.
But by knowing it, if that certain situations, certain symptoms happen, you know what it could be,
right?
And if it's a treatable condition, you can treat it immediately,
right?
Because otherwise, sometimes it might take years before identifying exactly what is this.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk briefly about the fundraising situation of GenomSys. What have you raised so far, and what's the plan?
So we raised overall about 11 million Swiss francs, of which 9 million. Less than 2 years ago, October, the closing was October 2019.
Yeah.
We are planning to open a new fundraising round. We would expect a bigger amount. But to be realistic, we think that we will go for call it a bridge, a convertible, or a smaller amount of like 5 million in the next few months to make sure that we can get a real traction and partners and show revenues and customers, and then go for the big bang.
Right. And tell me, I mean, we briefly talked about the revenue and business model, but maybe you can go a little bit more deeper. Like, what are your plans? Have you made any revenue yet, or is this still on the horizon?
We have made some revenues, but I wouldn't say are significant, honestly. So we are not zero, but some.
It's just not zero.
Not zero, and it's already an important step.
Sure.
We are envisioning actually to go double digits in the million euros revenues within 12 months, more from the professional, the B2B products, because we envision B2C to have a longer time frame to turn into kind of real revenue generating.
Right.
But is the B2C the app that is really disruptive is a strong word, but kind of the true innovative element, let's put it this way.
Absolutely. Good. So I want to talk a little bit about the ecosystem that we have in Switzerland. Maybe you can just give me your overall impression of the Swiss startup ecosystem in Switzerland. Well,
I think from my experience I'm in Switzerland since over 9 years, so I've seen different environments, the Lausanne area, I've seen Ticino, I had experience with the Zurich area, so maybe I missed some for sure. I think it's quite a vibrant ecosystem. I see a lot of innovation, a lot of technical innovation, a lot of great ideas. It's impressive from that point of view, I have to say. I don't know, or I didn't see an equally large amount of institutional investors. And maybe it's my fault.
Yes.
I think it's not necessarily that there is no investment or no funding opportunity, but you haven't the same number of institutional investors as you have in other environments. Is that necessarily bad? Actually, there are goods and bads.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting you say that, because when you have, let's say, the more technical startups sitting in your seat, they're saying, for biotech companies, it's so easy, and for healthcare, it's so easy. Everybody wants to invest in them, but for us, it's so hard. And now you're telling me exactly the opposite, which I think it's interesting.
I think, if I look like the VC or the institutional investor environment, You have much fewer clearly identifiable institutional investors in Switzerland compared to, Silicon Valley, scaled down. But you have a lot of different investors. You have a lot of large angel investors. You have a lot of family offices. So it takes a bit of a different framing.
Right. Absolutely. And tell me, like, if you can, shape the future of the Swiss ecosystem in the next couple of years, like, where would you start? What would be kind of like your contributions, or where would you like to see some change?
From the part of whom? From myself, or from my company, from the Federal Council, or the Parliament?
You can ask. Maybe the Bundesrat is going to listen and say, if you say that, then we got to do this.
I doubt they would exactly do that. I think, and maybe it's a moment in time, I think Switzerland needs to be granted a place at the table of the research environment with the European Union, something that has been, as of these days, put in questions from political reasons. And so kind of research should freely circulate. I know it's probably a moment in time.
Yes.
I hope. I think there are a lot of initiatives of also accelerating, bringing business knowledge to the technical environment would be very important. I think there are a lot of these technical also startups coming up from ETH, EPFL, or so on. They have fantastic ideas. Not necessarily is as easy for them to capture the business
commercialization,
the commercialization environment. So maybe an effort. There are already efforts going on.
Right, for sure.
But I think that would be quite important in today's world.
Good. So the next topic that I would like to discuss with you, it's really like to get to know you personally a little bit better. It's one of the things that like I've been trying to be a little bit more vocal in my videos about is as mental health. I think especially when you're at the top of a startup or a fast growing company, one of the things is like many people struggle with but don't talk about is mental health. So maybe you can give me kind of like a little bit of like where you see your personal challenges with the mental health in your company and with yourself, whatever you feel comfortable in sharing.
I think sports and have social connections and not putting all yourself into the company completely. I mean, it sounds crazy because you have a dream, you want to really make it happen, but you also need to remember that there is life outside.
Correct. Yes. I mean, like one of the reasons is because, again, like when you look on especially social media and you look at all of these people, like they always like tell you if you want to be successful, you have to work for like 12, 15 hours a day.
Yeah, and that is the minimum.
That is the minimum. And, you hear it from corporate world, from the consulting world, investment banking, that like this is kind of like, the minimum you have to do. And again, it's very refreshing to hear. And that's what I hope to also to convey to the audience, when you have like people who are successful, but, like they also have like this healthy attitude towards life in general.
Yeah, you need to have. I mean, I worked 20 years as a management consultant.
Yeah, so you know better what I'm talking about.
And I tried always from when I was a youngster to when I was a senior partner to keep that kind of rule of understanding what is outside and keeping at least a minimum of hours and distress opportunity. Then it's always difficult because with hindsight you realize that maybe you passed a networking opportunity with friends or whatever, but it's always easy to see afterwards.
Sure. After is always easier, but I'm saying like in the moment you try to make the best decisions. And tell me, like, do you have like anything like you feel like helps you to stay productive throughout your day?
Trying to focus on what I believe is the more important things of the day. One of the things that I realized that it happens to me as it happens to everyone. You end up following the urgent things, the things that pops up.
Right.
And instead of having devoted your time to what is really important. So I try. I cannot say that I'm always successful to at least kind of block a certain number of hours, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, depends, on which I will not look emails, and I just kind of close. Okay, I need to prepare that very important pitch. I need to think the business plan. I need to really, okay, that's
priority number one.
And second, you socialize that. That's also the very important point.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I recently read the book called Deep Work. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you heard about it, but this is really talking about like this understanding that, like, you know, if you want to do like something, you know, in depth, and you want to think about something, you have to like take the time and block it actively out of your calendar. And what's interesting is, I don't remember the exact number, but a big number of people do not have more than don't have chunks of 30 minutes where they do the same task. So they're misinterpreting as multitasking, but what they're actually doing is they're jumping in between tasks.
That I think
is very interesting, that like to be aware of.
You can do that if you are doing some, let's say, operational work. I don't know, you need to look at something, review a quick contract that you already discussed, or maybe even checking if the development is on time. Yes. If you don't have any specific issue, okay, you can do it. But if you really want to understand, okay, how to solve this or what, you really need to focus your attention. At least myself. Maybe other people are more multitasking.
Sure. But it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult to not get distracted these days. You have so many things that pop up, and the
number of distractions are increasing exponentially. Absolutely. Or the distraction opportunities.
The distraction opportunities, yes. I mean, it's an active choice to not get distracted anymore, which is interesting.
True.
What's your favorite book and why?
That is a very difficult question, because I read many books. So I thought about that question. I thought A Brief History of Time, because it's a bit an example of really looking for not for the innovation, but the unthinkable, and even trying to go beyond what can be achieved.
Right. If you can choose between an exit or an IPO, what would you choose and why?
For our specific case, probably an exit, because I think could help, I assume, would help the company get a part of a stronger ecosystem.
What is for you a successful entrepreneur?
Someone that can learn from past mistakes or failures, as well as not get too arrogant for successes.
If you think of one reason your startup could fail, what would it be?
Being too early.
Too early?
Too early.
So I'm running out of cash eventually?
Running out of cash, because I say the predictions from here to 2031.
It's clear.
If it's 2023, we can make it 2024, fantastic. If it happens to be 2031, maybe we'll be too early in the market. Right.
Now, if you look at your life, what is success in life for you?
To see my 22-month child grow and make sure that try to transmit to him all my experiences. Will be the toughest challenge in my future life.
Well, I can tell you one thing. We have 3 children. At 2 years, you stop saying the month. So you're saying...
I'm thinking
you'll be close to the 24, and then it's going to be easier. You don't have to keep track of each one. And the last one is like, what is your best advice that you've ever received or that you would like to give to your child for the next generation?
I think 2 things: not to lose confidence in yourself, and really try to understand what are your assets, your characteristics, but always ask for advice and to people you trust.
Very good. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your time and for giving me such insights into GenomSys. I really appreciate it. And I wish you much success, and hope to stay part of your journey on the sideline.
We'll be happy to. Thank you.